Marvin Bush, brother of George W., was on the board of directors of Securicom from 1993 to 2000. Securicom provided security for the World Trade Center, United Airlines, and Dulles International Airport. The company was backed by QAM, a Kuwaiti-American investment firm on whose board Marvin Bush also served. Securicom received a contract to provide electronic security services for the World Trade Center from 1996 to 1998. Marvin Bush is a former director of HCC Insurance Holdings, and is currently listed as an advisor to the board of directors. HCC, formerly Houston Casualty Company, is a publicly traded property and casualty insurance company. In a release on its official website dated September 13, 2001, HCC had what it called a small participation in the World Trade Center property insurance coverage in some of the surrounding buildings. Kroll is a global risk consulting company headquartered in New York. The company has expanded beyond private investigation and security services into all areas of corporate risk mitigation, including background screening, business intelligence, market intelligence, forensic accounting, electronic discovery, and data recovery, among others. It is a subsidiary of Marsh & McLennan Companies, a corporation that held offices on 8 floors of the North Tower of the World Trade Center, between floors 93 and 100. When an aircraft crashed into the building as part of the attacks, their offices composed the entire impact zone, which was between floors 93 and 99. Kroll were responsible for revamping security at the World Trade Center after the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. They also took on responsibility for security at Chicago's Sears Tower following the September 11, 2001 attacks. Kroll Incorporated also hired former FBI Special Investigator John O'Neill, specializing on Osama bin Laden, to head the security at the WTC complex just prior to September the 11th, 2001. John Patrick O'Neill was a top American anti-terrorism expert, who worked as a special agent and eventually assistant director in the Federal Bureau of Investigation until late 2001. In 1995, O'Neill began to intensely study the roots of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing after he assisted in the capture of Ramzi Youssef, who was the alleged leader of that plot. He subsequently learned of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, and investigated the 1996 Khobar Towers bombing in Saudi Arabia and the 2000 USS Cole bombing in Yemen. A New York Times report of August 19, 2001 suggested that O'Neill had been the subject of an internal investigation at the FBI. The report suggested that O'Neill was responsible for losing a briefcase with highly classified information in it, containing among other things a description of every counter-espionage and counterterrorism program in New York. The briefcase was recovered shortly after its disappearance. The FBI investigation was reported to have concluded that the suitcase had been snatched by local thieves involved in a series of hotel robberies, and that none of the documents had been removed. Partly due to personal friction he had within the FBI and federal government, O'Neill left to become the head of security at the World Trade Center, where he purportedly died at age 49 in the September 11, 2001 attacks. O'Neill started his new job at the World Trade Center on August 23, 2001. He was appointed by Kroll Associates, namely by the managing director Jerome Hauer. In late August, he talked to his friend Chris Isham about the job. Jokingly, Isham said, "At least they're not going to bomb it again," a reference to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. O'Neill replied, "They'll probably try to finish the job." Jerome Hauer, who hired John O'Neill, was formerly the director of Office of Emergency Management under New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani from 1996 to 2000. Additionally, he was previously an employee of Kroll Incorporated, which studied biological terrorism attacks. On September 11, 2001, Jerome Hauer was a national security advisor with the National Institute of Health, a managing director with Kroll Associates, and a guest on national television, because of his background in counter-terror and his specialized knowledge of biological warfare. Jerome Hauer is best known for being the director of the Office of Emergency Management (OEM) when he made the decision to build a $13 million crisis center on the 23rd floor at 7 World Trade Center. This crisis center was unveiled in June 1999, and became the subject of tension between the agency and the police department, whose own command center at One Police Plaza had until then been the focus of emergency preparedness operations. Reports indicate that the OEM Crisis Center at the World Trade Center was not being used on 9/11 by the usual personnel. The center had been temporarily relocated to Pier 92 on Manhattan's West Side, due to a FEMA drill which was supposed to begin on the day after 9/11, according to statements made by Mayor Giuliani. The site was immediately controversial because it was part of the Trade Center, which had already been the location of a truck bomb attack in 1993. City officials, though, including Mr. Hauer, have long defended their decision, even after the command center had to be evacuated during the 2001 terror attack. The OEM Crisis Center in WTC-7 is suspected by some conspiracy theorists as being the control center for the pre-planned demolition of the towers. Micro-operative from the wilderness, who helped break stories of the government selling drugs to the public even before Iran-Contra, believes that it was the third building where much incriminating CIA information was held and was the prime target of the attack. The center was destroyed when the 47-story tower was completely demolished at about 5:25 p.m. on 9/11.
If you're in that building, it'll be coming down. The building is about to blow up. Pull it back. Here, look it back. There's a building about to blow up.
Building's going to collapse. Nothing information. Building's going to collapse. Nothing information. Building's going to collapse. Nothing information.
Understanding that that building had been evacuated when the collapse occurred.
This was known as Building 7, the World Trade Center, and that is fresh video you're looking at of that coming down.
The World Trade Center complex came under the control of a private owner for the first time only in mid-2001, having been built and managed by the Port Authority as a public resource. When the Port Authority put it up for lease in 2000, Larry Silverstein, an American billionaire, real estate investor and developer in New York City, won the bid on July 24, 2001, only weeks before the towers were destroyed on September 11. He acquired a handsome insurance policy for the complex, including a clause that would prove extremely valuable. In the event of a terrorist attack, the partnership could collect the insured value of the property, and be released from their obligations under the 99-year lease. Soon after the attack, Silverstein ran into dispute with his insurers over whether the attacks constituted one or two occurrences. A settlement was reached in 2004, with insurers agreeing to pay out $4.55 billion instead of the $7.1 billion which Silverstein sought.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.